Hello and welcome back. In today's session, we will cover the very basics of Python. We're still with the very basics of Python. What we will look at in this session is how to accept an input from the user using Python on Colab, understand what variables are, understand the input process and output cycle, and simply concatenate two strings. Concatenation is a process of putting two strings together. Strings, in other words, is letters or alphabets put together. Since they are being put together, they are generally referred to as strings. As you can figure out, a garland is a string of flowers. Similarly, a string is a series of alphabets and numbers put together, ultimately being treated as a set of alphabets rather than as numbers. So let's see what's coming up.
Hello all, we are back with another session on Python Made Easy. The Python Made Easy series is to help you gain very fundamental knowledge of how to deal with Python. To keep our process simple, we have decided to use Google Colab to start with. So the URL for this is colab.google. The other way to get to this is to type colab.research.google.com. Alright, so if you want to start, last time we saw that you could actually do a file and a new notebook in Drive or open a notebook. The other option would be to click here. So these are pretty much the same thing that you wanted to do, but these are just two different ways to get there. Like they say, all roads lead to Rome. So now let's just click on this and it will open a new notebook. The assumption here is that you are already logged into your system. It takes a few seconds for the page to render. You are obviously expected to be connected to Python. It will create a new file depending on how many files you have. It will create a different file here. Alright, okay, before we start the session, let me put a surprise to you guys. For those who stick till to the end of the session, there is something that's waiting. So look at that session, watch the entire video and see how you can grab some goodie out of this. Alright, now here is what we are planning. Last time we did print followed by something in quotation, right? So the first process always takes a little longer, like we mentioned last time. It is connecting and then you'll see some information coming up here. Let's hang in there for a moment and see what it says. It said there's a mistake. So this is how it's telling you here that you mistyped it. Now let's just do one more change and see what it does. You see that underscore, that's not exactly very pleasant, but let's see what that means. Again, it didn't like it. So this would be two common things that you would have missed in the last session. You could type a you could have typed a wrong spelling or essentially a wrong spelling, but in a different case. So print, the functions here are case sensitive, which means you cannot type it in capitals when you need to type it in the small letters. or lowercase as it is known as in the computer terminology. So let's just get back to this and let's make it work. Okay, here whatever we gave worked, right? So A, you cannot change the name here, you cannot change the case either. This is sort of very fundamental to every programming language. Now, let us say I want to print my name is Adam. So it does print this. What if you wanted to print somebody's name, whoever is using your application, right? Let's say your program is successful, everybody is using it, but they want to print their name, not the name which you have already programmed, right? And whatever is that name, they want it to come in this place of XX, right? Now let's see how we can do that. So, but before that, let's just take a look at what is the input, process, and output cycle. So we're going to take a look at the input, process, output cycles. So there is somebody or some place from which the computer is able to get something that it can read, process. So you have an input, right? Let's say the person is going to enter a name. So person enters a name, you do something with it, and obviously you are going to do something with that as the output, right? So when you are talking about a program, it is input, process, and output. See, the input symbol is really the parallelogram. So input and output, right? So you have an input, the process, and the output. So this is a cycle. So you tell the computer that this is what you got. There are certain things you want to do with it. Let's say you got two numbers, you want to add it. Or like the case we said, when somebody enters their name, we want to add that and say my name is something, right? Just to keep it simple. Right. So this is the input process cycle. Let's not worry about anything more than that. And let's quickly jump back into the code. We are going to add a line which says name is equal to input. What is your name? And note this, I'm going to say plus name. Right. So what are we doing here? So name is something which will be known to me when the program runs. And every time it can change, right? By the fact that it can change and it is available for the program to process, it is known as a variable. Variable means something which can change. So you have a name which is a variable, and it's the next step is to put both these together and let's see what happens. I ran it. So Google is now asking me, what is your name? We gave this text here, so it's asking me against that. So let me give an input. Here it says, okay, I'm going to say, my name's Adam. I'm going to press enter, right? But see this double X there, so I don't want to get rid of that. Let me get rid of that, and let's see if we can get a cleanly formatted string. So it's going to ask that again. And there you go. So now we have cleanly formatted string. So we have an input, we have a concatenation, that means we have put both these things together, which is we have taken the string called my name is and whatever the person gave. So now your program is beginning to become interactive with the user. The user is now telling the computer something and that computer is making sense of it, right? So as you have figured out, the computer needs to be told everything step by step. That's sort of a basic, only stating the obvious again. But for those of you who are new to programming and have jumped in, just remember that the computer itself is not very smart. It will just do what you ask it to do. AI or not, end of the day, the computer is not smart. It's you who's smart. So here it is. So in this session, we have learned what a variable is, because every time you run it, you get a different value, and therefore it varies, and therefore it is a variable. So name in this case is a variable, and we have learned how to concatenate two strings. Last time was very simple. We just had one little session. This time we are having two operations, and we looked at the input, process, and outputs.
If you are a CBSE student in class 12, you would have noticed that your informatics practices book covers Python. One little problem though is it begins with NumPy. But what happened to the basics? One of those things that we try to cover is before you get to NumPy and the more powerful tools in Python, what we are trying to do as a first step is to get you to have a little control over Python before more powerful tools are taught. It's a bit like teaching you how to get the balance of a two-wheeler before you can accelerate to 100. So that's one of the prime objectives which I am starting this with. And there are a lot of other people who have missed their courses, who do not understand a lot of what has been taught in class, and have or are trying to switch their career from something else to Python. So this is for those people, and these are the very fundamentals of programming in Python.